Hello everyone, and welcome to one of my vlogs. Something I haven't done in a long time. In fact, when was the last time I did one? Oh yeah, that was back when I did have my old channel, which is a sad story. And yeah, so I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I've been thinking about a topic to talk about. And also I've been thinking if there's still people out there who still wonder about the things I have to say about certain topics. And one thing that I like to talk about a lot is my love for the animation media, the art form that is animation. And so I thought about doing a topic, and I decided to do the topic of a particular show and the show's history. And that is the show is Invader Zim. And I have to say that the one thing that's so interesting about Invader Zim is the fact that there's such a demand, such passion for a show to come back years after it's been canceled. I mean, it's crazy. It's not just people who are just enthused. It's like its own little phenomenon. It's just I haven't seen so much enthusiasm for a show to come back. And I'm kind of surprised that I don't see that from other fan bases too. Like, oh, we're fans of this thing, and we want to see it come back. But it's just Invader Zim fans, and that's pretty interesting. So, if you kind of look at what fans are talking about when it comes to Invader Zim, the things that they're discussing about, you'll see that there's this one topic about bring Invader Zim back onto TV, bring the show back in some way, which is understandable because it did have a short life. It was cut short, and there still is some unfinished business with the show that the people who were behind it didn't get a chance to continue. And I have to say, as a fan, I was there when Zim premiered for the first time. And I didn't stick with it, though. For some reason, I drifted away from it after the premiere. But I did discover it years later when it was on DVD, and I saw, for what it was, and that was a good show. And it made me become a fan, and even made my niece become a fan. But when you're talking about something like Invader Zim, and saying things like, we want it back, one thing that you have to keep in mind, which is the main thing about Invader Zim, and that is its history, which it has had a rocky, complex history. And and then a lot of people have talked about this topic, and people have come on and have given their options, their ideas, their point of views about what made it fail. It had a bad demographic. It was on a wrong time slot. It wasn't made for Nickelodeon. This and that, and people have said that for quite some time. And then someone actually recorded a video clip of InvaderCon, and someone actually asked that question of what happened to Zim, what was the reason for it being canceled, and Eric Trueheart actually answered that question, one of the writers from Invader Zim, and he said that Nickelodeon had to make some cutbacks, and Zim had low ratings, and so they looked around and they saw that Invader Zim was the best option, and so they yanked Invader Zim. And plus two, Invader Zim was an expensive show to make. And I go, okay, that's a reasonable answer. But I say that there's still more to it. If look a little bit more deeper. Let's draw a scenario and say if Invader Zim was still kind of going on, maybe another year or two, and it got taken off air, not because of low ratings, but for some other reasons. And so that's what I kind of want to do in this video here, is to kind of give probably the best explanation for why Invader Zim would kind of still meet its doom, if it not just for low ratings, but for other reasons. And so just want to give out my thoughts, and possibly they're probably the best answer that anyone can come up with. So let's start. First off, and I've said this before when I did a review for Invader Zim, is that no matter what, Invader Zim was always going to meet its end the way it did because of what it was. I think that no matter who you took this show to, no any network, they would kind of appreciate it for one thing on one hand, and then they would dismiss it for another thing on the other hand. Say, like, if you took it to MTV, I would imagine MTV would say something like, it's goofy, it's crazy, it's zany, but it's a cartoon, and I don't think that's going to fit with our audience. Or if you take it to something like Cartoon Network, and they would say, oh, it looks fantastic, the people who worked on this did a great job, it's a spectacle to look at, but it's too, I'm not going to say dark, I'm going to say punky. It's too punk, and it's too on the edge, it's too gritty. That's not our cup of tea. So, Invader Zim was always going to be a show that was going to stick out and never fit into anyone's standard. It's just too punk of a show to just follow anybody's rules. I also think another reason why it would kind of have a rocky, bumpy history is because of the creator himself, Jonah Vasquez. After hearing Vasquez talk from interviews and from Q&As and whatnot, I kind of get the impression that he's the kind of guy who he'll make something and that's what you think of him. And if you're expecting something from him, then he's just going to come out of left field and then throw something else at you. So if they're thinking of creepy, twisted monsters yesterday, then I'm going to throw them with fluffy, cute bunny stuff today. And he might not be that type of guy, but that's how I kind of think he probably operates in his head. That he would purposely kind of screw with you just to see what your reaction would be. And and I think that if you're dealing with someone like that, not saying that he is, then you don't quite know what the history of something like Invader Zim is going to be. It's hard to tell. And for everyone who says that they want to see Invader Zim back on air, they say that we want to see Invader Zim come back, and we want to see him in his former glory. The way we saw him when he checked out. And for anyone to say that, I would have to say that if you say something like that, that's like saying we want to see the Sex Pistols come back. We want the Sex Pistols, the originals. We want to see them the way we saw them, way back in the day, back in their pistol glory, and just see them the way they were when we first saw them way back then. And I have to say that if you're thinking like that, then that's a pretty impossible thing that's going to come true. Because I think that, for a lot of reasons, a lot of things like those can't really come back. And I think in the case of something like Invader Zim or the Sex Pistols, is that, those were things that came along the right place, the right time. Or you can say that they were a product of their time. And you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. And I myself just can't see something like Invader Zim coming back the way it was before. It's kind of like saying that you want to see an old band return, but their lead singer died years ago. And and even if you do plan to bring it back, then people might tweak it, might try their hardest to make it like it was, but you'll disappoint more people than anything, because what we want to see is the original experience that people were experiencing way back then, and see it for what it was, and not just see some kind of carbon copy or trying to substitute something for what's not there anymore. So I can't really see something like Zim coming back. Even if it did come back, then it's not going to be the same thing like we saw before. And I just think that there so much time has passed, years have gone by, and the people who have done Zim probably moved on to better things. And with Zim, some of them said that it wasn't. It was one of those things where it left such a bad scar, a history on them, that I don't even know. It's one of those things where you don't even want to think about it because it was just a horrible, harsh thing to work on. But yeah, as a fan, I kind of think that when those who were working on Invader Zim were working on it, they were kind of riding this wave of excitement, like this crazy train of excitement. And I think that if people were to come back and to work on Zim, I think that the people who worked on Zim, the cast and crew, I think that everyone would kind of have this moment where they would stop in their tracks, look around, and say to themselves, the crazy train has left the station. It's been gone for a long time. It's been gone for a very, very long time.